Recently, I've run into this concept of radical collaboration. I guess it's a certification out there that you can get. I guess there's a book that goes along with it. And they have these 5 principles that they've distilled for radical collaboration. And so I'm just going to make a few observations here, and I'm going to be very upfront and just say, hey, I don't know a lot about this, but on the surface, from what I've seen, uh, not really sure what they're bringing to the table that is extra or new that already hasn't been addressed out there in any other hundreds of books that are out there already. But we'll give it a stab. For the collaborative intention, that sounds a lot like commander's intent. And that's a concept that already the Prussians, when they did the first retrospective in modern history back in the 1800s, whenever it was, uh, they realized that the troops at the front lines were not able to react quickly enough because they were running back and forth trying to get the information from the commanders at the back to the front lines. And so what they changed the next time around that they met Napoleon is that they said, hey, here's the commander's intent. Each of the people knows what the commander's intent is for this campaign, and we're going to do it. Well, that's basically vision. Okay, it's vision, mission, purpose. Start with why. And it basically, these are definitions. So when we're looking at this, I would look at this from that perspective. I think it was David Marquette in his book Turn the Ship Around, where he painted word pictures to do collaborative intent. When we're looking at these others, truthfulness, well, that's the 4R model, starting with the right truth. Self-accountability, that's the drive part of the 4D model. Are you actually following and doing what you said you were going to do? Are you walking the talk, or are you just talking the talk? Self-awareness and awareness of others, that's using the 4R model in reverse. That's using the 4D model in reverse. That's the ability to use the flow friction analysis, using all of those on the fly as you're working with the people, which takes you right into number 5, which is problem solving and negotiating, which is again using those the 4D and the 4R models in reverse to do root cause analysis, and then using the flow friction analysis to figure out what you've got going on with the team, and then negotiating. And there's a book out there, Getting to Yes, where you've got 2 people who are maybe polar opposites, and you go through a lot of exercises to get them to that one thing where they're both in agreement, and you use that one thing moving forward to create the ability to move forward for the team members so that you can actually deliver what you promised. So for me, I'm looking at this as I'm looking at collaborative, radical collaboration. To me, it feels like it's primarily individual and team level. Of course, it's useful at the program portfolio executive level because it's all people that are there. So you could use it in all 4 boxes, but to me, it's looking like it's more on the left than necessarily on the right. This is just the like collaborative intention, stay non-defensive, commit to mutual success in relationships. From a flow perspective, we talk about breathing life into the assignment, breathing life into the project, breathing life into the product that we're trying to bring to market. And so being non-defensive, that's being self-secure enough in your own abilities, in being secure enough and relying on your team's abilities. You can take teams that may be considered subpar in a company and still get them to perform. Okay. But that is an example of being able to commit to the mutual success in the relationships, because you're not there to succeed just for yourself. You're there to make sure the team succeeds. Okay. Truthfulness, creating a climate of honesty, openness that allows people to feel safe enough to discuss difficult issues. You get to a certain age and you've realized that life is terribly short. There's no guarantees. And, you know, there's no point in not being truthful. Besides, do you really want to have to try to keep track of all the lies you might have told? That would just be exhausting. I wouldn't even be able to keep up. So, like my marketing professor told us in our MBA program already 27 years ago, tell the truth. There's no better policy than just being truthful. Okay. And then he added, in a good marketing spin, the truth can be mitigated. Okay. uh, you know, sometimes you don't need to say everything that's on your mind. And, so you can still have a climate that's open and people can still be honest. But there's ways to phrase things so that you just don't totally rip the other person apart. Okay? I mean, that's just good communication skills. Self-accountability. Take responsibility for the consequences of your actions, and that's really a tough one. Most people don't do that. I hear all the time people just going, well, it wasn't me. It was so-and-so. They did X, Y, and Z, and so, they're the ones that let the team down. But if we get into a culture of blame, your team has no chance of winning. Okay? And self-accountability is not just talking the talk, it's walking the talk. And just like that values poster that I shared earlier, if there's check marks on the value statements and it was your team that was tracking you, mercy. It's amazing anything gets done in organizations when you really consider all of the dysfunctional people that we have out there. Self-awareness, awareness of others, know yourself and others well enough to explore difficult interpersonal issues. Wow. Getting into personality, there are so many models out there. We actually talk about that in the Flow Certified Professional training and how we approach that and our view on this. I depart from most of the nurture versus nature, or the environmentalists versus the geneticists. Is it built in? Is it a result of the environment you grew up in? I don't look at it as either or. I view it as both and I add one more thing, and that's choice. I've seen too many people overcome their genetics, overcome their environment, and do incredibly amazing things that it just blows out all the arguments. And so if you have difficult interpersonal issues, that's friction. That's just friction. And remember, you got three things: friction, underperformance, and confusion. Okay? And so the friction analysis helps you to quickly identify what's going on, do the root cause, and then move into the problem solving and negotiating. Well, negotiating is sales, people. No, negotiate your way through inevitable conflict. Getting to Yes is a book that is one of the classics that's out there, where you have two people at two very different starting points, and you work with them using definitions and distillation to get them to a point of agreement, and you use that point of agreement to move forward and resolve the conflict. Okay, so when I'm looking at radical collaboration, I'm looking at this and I'm thinking, okay, great. This is all the same things that we learned 35, 40 years ago when I went through the university, or even 27 years ago when I did my MBA. The next slides are just flow leadership in a nutshell. These aren't numbered because I usually print them out on 11 by 17 or as big as paper as I get, and I put them up in the room. For the flow of leadership, on the left-hand side of this is the people portion. And we've got the first triangle with the mental, physical, and social, with the person's vision, spirit in the middle. And this has a very interesting base and starting point. This was first brought forward by Ted as early as 1972. And he used it to take a insurance company that was losing $500,000 a year, and he turned it around and ended up, I think it was, they were doing $4.5 million in sales, so it was a $5 million turnaround for that agency, and so the company just loved him. And he used this with his salespeople and excuse me, with his staff, and he used it to breathe life into people. And so when you look at it, it's pretty straightforward. Your mental part is your thoughts, your ideas, your right truth. That's 4R model. Physical is literally your physical health and your physical capabilities. And the social part, that's the relational part. That's the networking part. That's the person's ability to interact with other people. And when you look at this from a, for example, project viewpoint, we used to teach in classic project management that communications was 80% of everything we do in projects. Well, these days, communications is 95%, especially when you take Agile, Lean, Kanban, and all these other things into consideration. The 4R model here is for the people. We've talked about that previously. And then we combine the two triangles, okay? And so the mental aligns with right truth and distilling your right values and attitudes. The physical is when you take the abstract thought and turn it into physical action. And then right results, if you're getting right results, that's going to help you socially and relationally. And it's the relational social part that keeps those two sides of the triangle up. If that breaks, the sides of the triangle fall flat. As always, we have the transformation box in the middle, the 4 lenses there, or the 4 main tiles: individual, team, product, and organization. We have the AHA curve that we use for both people, teams, the product program level, and the organization level. And then for the teams in the organization, we have a mirror image of the original model Ted had for people. We have that for the team, where you have business knowledge, tools and technology, and relationships communication at the top. We also use vision, strategy, people, and tasks here for the team level. And then we had one additional box here, or one additional triangle actually, and it's one mind, one language, one mind, one plan. Okay? If you're all speaking the same language, it's easier to get everybody on the same page, which makes it easier to plan and deliver. But if the language is confused, guess what? You're going to have problems. And so we took those 2 triangles, combined them together, and put them over the 4D model that we talked about before with define, distill, deliver, and drive. And then you have the one language is coming from the business knowledge side. The one mind needs to be distilled over on the tools and technology side so that they can deliver the tools and technology we need to succeed. And then the drive is the one plan and making sure that everybody's still on the same page. We didn't get too much into languages of leadership versus language of management. We go more into depth on that in our Flow Certified Professional Training. But very simply, as you looked at what we used in cascading vision with the different levels there, The upper levels, and that line in the middle can move. It might be as high as senior management. It might be down below project management. It's not a hard and fast line. It's just there for demonstration purposes and to keep it symmetrical. But in those upper boxes, there's what we call the language of leadership. And then definitely by the time you're down to project level, you're definitely into the language of management. And those are two different languages. And so if you look at the right two boxes with individual and team, those are clearly language of management. When you get into the product box, that's probably evenly split between language of leadership and language of management. And then in the organization box at the leadership levels, guess what? That's the language of leadership. If you've ever listened to the executives speak with each other, you'll notice that they're communicating almost in a completely different code. It's a pattern, it can be learned, and if you want to be a really great project, program, or portfolio manager, you need to learn to speak the language of the leadership in your organization. And that includes knowing when to put your agile coaching hat on and when to put your management consulting hat on, because we need to understand, are the executives looking at this from an innovation perspective, or are they looking at this from an operational excellence perspective? And how do we help them know and understand when it's time to do creative destruction for the existing operational excellence structures and processes that may already exist? As always, we have the 4 box for transformation in the middle there. And here I just had this, the people that I like working with, people who dream big, people who get things done. People might be familiar with GSD, and people who have fun, and the sweet spot is there in the middle. Life's short, work is hard, you might as well work with something where you're having some fun, okay? We talked about cascading vision and cascading the VSBT, cascading the one thing, and creating the link back to the next level up from the level below with the one thing that they need in order to succeed. And we also talked about culture and the elements of culture, including vision, mission, purpose, core values and attitudes, strategies, goals and objectives, where that's basically going from really abstract ideas down to more concrete ideas.